Hi guys, welcome back to week 6 of Art and Design, lesson 6, alright? So today, since we had a short break on the creativity kind of thing that we did last week, which was object art, I hope you guys liked it. It's a very fun kind of thing, so I hope you weren't too pressured by it. And so this week we're going back into a bit more technical kind of things, meaning like more technical in terms of art. So it'll help you in the future, meaning like when you guys come up with better art ideas to make your art look good. Yeah, so this is one of the basic fundamentals that I'll be talking about today, okay? So what we're talking about today is called value, okay? Value and shading. So I'm sure you guys have done lots of different things, like if you guys are into art already, like shading and stuff like that. But so this is just to make sure that I cover it with you in case you haven't done it before. And if you have done it before, there's always nothing wrong with just going at it again because, well, practice makes someone better. In art, there's nowhere if you go nowhere if you don't practice, because almost every artist out there has to practice to get better, okay? And you guys too. So let's do this together. So on the sheet, what I already attached inside the activity this week, I'll be giving you this. So this is actually printable, but if you don't want to print it, I will also say that it's fine if you guys want to actually use a ruler and construct it, meaning like these ones are about 2 cm each, so it's about 2 cm times 2 cm. So if you guys want to construct it, please go for it. Or if you guys feel like you're a bit lazy, you guys can print it out as well, okay? So we'll be using this sheet, but I'll be telling you more about value a little bit more before we proceed. So value, right guys, is basically the light and darkness of any kind of thing, any kind of pigment, any kind of hue. So those words sound a bit tricky. So value is technically just lightness and darkness of a color of the object. So let's just say I take this. So this is black, right? So black will probably be pretty dark. So we will just say, like in general, black will be 100%. Usually blacks are always 100% because, well, they're the darkest in the whole spectrum, right? And white will be white, 0%. Why? It's because there's nothing on it, meaning like there's no color, nothing on it. So white will be 0 because there's nothing on it. And black will be 100 because it's totally covered. There's nothing that you can see other than black, right? So what happens is the in-between. So the in-between gets a little bit more tricky. So for every color that we see, right, in real life, guys, meaning like, let's just say, okay, it's going to be weird items, guys, I'm sorry, but let's just say this yellow or this metal. So you can tell they're not totally black or they're not totally white. And so the easiest way for me to explain it is that when you copy or photostat color, you notice that when it turns black and white, right, it becomes gray. So yeah, so today our values are all going to be gray, meaning black added and white, and so basically the in-betweens will all be gray, okay? So when you when you photostat this kind of colors, it becomes a light gray, and when you photostat these kind of colors, it becomes a darker gray. So this is the value of this object, meaning like this part is darker, so when you photostat it, it becomes a darker gray, and this part is lighter, so that's why it becomes a lighter gray. So the lighter color it is, the lighter it is in value. The darker color it is, the darker it is in value. Okay, so for this exercise, it's basically just to train you to detect what is light and what is dark. I have also attached a sample for you guys just so you guys can judge it by yourself. But of course, if you guys can try your best to do it on your own, that'll be the best, because what we're going to do is 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. Okay, why I didn't put 100 is because you probably know it, 100 is completely black, which is going to be super hard for you guys to shade, and 0 is just so that you guys remember that actually white itself is 0%, okay? So why do we use like by 10% and not like 5%? Because it's really hard, especially when you're starting out, to differentiate 5% in difference. So it's kind of like if my hand, this part is slightly darker compared to this, and then we have to like judge, but then they look the same, right? So when we're starting out, we jump a bit more, meaning like 10% each, so that it'll be a bit more obvious when you guys are shading it, okay? So first of all, we'll be touching on regular shading. So I'm going to leave this here while I do it here as well, okay? So regular shading means that I think some of you guys like to do this with pencil, okay? So yeah, those are just regular shading. So you guys can use that. And what we're going to do is that we're not going to color this. We're going to start coloring this. So 10% is pretty light, so make sure you color it lightly, okay? And the next one, 20%. 20% will be slightly darker than the 10. And then 30% is a bit darker than the 20%. So remember guys, we are going to get the darker and darker eventually. Or if you guys prefer and you're not sure about it, you guys can always start with the darkest first and go lighter. So it really depends on you. But I would suggest, well, I think light to dark might be a bit easier at times as well. So depending on how you guys like to do art. But make sure, one of the things that's very, very important is that make sure this 90 really looks dark, okay? It might not be like fully pitch black, but make sure it looks dark enough because 90 is very close to 100 already, okay? And these ones are more in between, so you can like darken it as you go or lighten it as you go, but the 90 is the last one, so make sure it's dark enough, okay? And okay, so you will notice that if you do it wrong, you'll start to notice that how come all the tones look too similar. So that would mean that they are not contrasting enough, meaning that they're not too different from each other. So one of the ways you can tell that the jump is there is basically standing up. So once you stand up, you can take a better look at everything, or put this really far away, meaning like you lean back and then you put it far away. You will immediately be able to see the difference in tone. That means good job. Or if you see like the jump is too much, like in between is this to this, then you'll know that that's too much. So you have to keep adjusting it. There's a reference in the activity resources so that you guys can check on it just in case that you think that's not right. Or if you guys want, you guys can always basically go the other way. And then, so with the other way, you just need to lighten your hand. This one, press harder. This one, lighten your hand. So yeah, once again, back to what you guys want. For hatching, so now I'm going to talk lightly about other kinds of like shading ways. So one of the ways we do shading is hatching. So what is hatching? Hatching is actually lines instead of a full kind of like textured shading. So lines is so that it's a bit faster when you shade, and also mostly people use this like to emphasize things, or well, it kind of looks good and fast, so depending on you. But we'll go through some like hatching and cross hatching after this lesson, in the future lessons, because it's a technique that most of us use so that it's a bit quicker in the process, because sometimes shading like this with hatching does make it a bit faster, or if you do it all the way like this, depending on what you like, it could take longer. So yeah, it's just introducing a different way to do it. So hatching is basically, like I mentioned, all in the same direction. So if you pick this direction, that's fine, so just go in one direction, okay? And so when you're doing hatching as well, remember that if you're printing it out or you're doing it yourself, remember to label. Why am I asking you to label? So that you actually remember what percentage you're supposed to do, okay? This is just a friendly reminder to yourself that, okay, this is 70%, 80%, 90%, okay? So hatching as well has value, you see. So if you want it to be 10%, how we do it is we spread it apart. And basically with hatching, the closer it is, it tends to be darker. You can also press down a little harder each time so that it will look darker. And with time, it just gets closer and closer. And you can tell that I'm also pressing down and closer. So finally, at the end, everything should actually be so close that it looks like it's blended together, okay? And okay, so since I'm doing this fast, right, if you guys take a better look, some of the tones might look the same, meaning like some of the values might look the same, right? So when you find that happening, just go in and make it darker or make it lighter. It's just that simple. So let's just say I don't think 80 is dark enough. I'll just do it all in the same direction as I've been doing, okay? So it's stuff like this that you have to look out on. And finally, the last one will be cross-hatching. So it's really simple. It's all in the same direction for hatching. So if you can tell by the name, okay, let me just write this just in case, okay? So if you can tell by the name, cross-hatching would mean that there will be different hatching, but crossed. So we'll start in one direction, right? And then after that, you cross it with another set of hatching. So what we actually want, if you can see carefully, is basically to cross at a small angle, meaning like we don't want it to be crossed at like, look at me, this is 90 degrees, okay, meaning like directly. So when you cross directly, you can see like the spaces in between is a lot. So this means that it kind of looks a bit more like a pattern. So sometimes we try to cross it at a smaller angle, so that we try to reduce the holes so that it can look darker. So from hatching, if we want to make it darker, we can just turn into cross hatching. So let me give you an example. Let's just say I want to draw this and I draw it hatching, right? So hatching is good, but what if I want to make this part darker? Let's say I want to make this part darker. I just need to cross hatch it, see? And so with cross hatching, it doesn't mean like one set. You can actually go again. So within the cross hatch, you can cross hatch again and again and again until you can get it as dark as you want it, okay? So that is cross hatching. And so when we do our cross hatching here as well, remember to fill in the gap, guys. So I will just do it here lightly so that you guys can see. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is now cross hatching. So with cross hatching, you guys can actually, it's the same with hatching. So make sure the lines are very far apart, okay? Especially for the light ones. And the closer the lines are, the more the lines are, the darker your look, okay? So for initially, you can cross it like this because we want more space in between. But eventually, when it becomes darker, we're going to try to basically make it at a slighter angle so that it becomes darker. See? Just the difference of how I cross it, and you can tell how much darker it can get. So, and remember guys, to make sure that you are crossing it, you can go over it, okay? So make sure that you make sure sorry, I said make sure twice, but make sure that the lines get smaller and tighter, just like hatching, okay? So for this one, when it gets darker, make sure the lines are really tight, and so when you cross over, the less space it is, the darker it is, okay? So because remember that the paper is white, right? So the less space in between would probably mean that there is less white on the paper left over, so then it will make this darker. And if it's not dark enough, like I mentioned, press down on the pencil so it can be a bit darker, okay? And finally, these ones as well. If it's not dark enough, remember what I mentioned, you guys can cross it again. So just so that it becomes 80%. We really want them to look like the value, okay? So this might take some time. So you're only going to do this tree this week. I know it looks really simple, but juggling this is actually pretty tough. You need to actually look properly. So don't rush it, because this is actually really important, because later on, like maybe I will say stuff like, oh, okay, so we want the value to be around middle tone, so middle tone will be like 30 to 60, or we'll talk about colors, and when we talk about colors, there's also value in colors, all right? So please make sure that you guys do it properly and not just rush through it, because this is really important, guys, for the future as well, because when you do art, this comes out a lot, even in art college. It's not that simple. Okay, so that will be what we're gonna do. So you can print it out or you can do it yourself. If you're doing it yourself, try and make sure you use a ruler 2 times 2 cm, okay? And you need 10 boxes. So that will be it, and good luck for this week. Okay, so first one is shading, second one is hatching, and the last one is cross hatching. So good luck, guys. I hope you guys have a better understanding of value with this, and yeah, I'll see you guys next week. Bye.